got two great stories to cover today. Very interesting stuff. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Now, it's funny because the first story, as I was researching it, the ghost, I'm reading, I'm like, okay, ghost walking down the hallway, da-da-da-da. There's been this huge amount of ghost sightings at this house, and some interesting ones, but as I was researching, and then there's just ghosts walking down the hallway, which I don't find interesting, but as I'm researching, I'm like, this house almost went out of its way to become a haunted house. Its past is absolutely bonkers. So we're in Coloma, California, and this is the late 1800s. These two gold mining friends were like, hey, this sucks. Like, we're not making any money from the gold mining thing. Let's figure out something else to do. So you had the two dudes. You had Martin Alhoff and Robert Chalmers. And they're like, yeah, this just isn't doing it for us. There's haunted mules in the mine. We're not finding any gold. This sucks. So they stayed friends, but they stopped gold mining. Martin goes off and starts a vineyard. And it becomes this super successful vineyard in the area. Robert Chalmers goes the opposite route. He opens a hotel in the 1800s where there's a bunch of prospectors running around. No booze. That was the rule. It was a total, what's the word? A teetotaler? Teetotaler? Anyways, so he opens a hotel, no booze allowed, no one visits it. It goes out of business. But his buddy Martin, who has the vineyard, is doing great. Except, he doesn't have a liquor license, and he's not paying his taxes. Now, Martin at this point has a family, has a wife and some kids, super successful, award-winning wine, but he's facing these legal troubles, so he kills himself. So that's ghost cause number one. Now, Robert is like, my buddy just died, and my business is failing. How can I Reese's Peanut Butter Cup this? How can I combine these two things into one? And he goes, I know, I got it. A little Reese's Peanut Butter Cup appears above his head. He goes, I will marry my best friend's wife, widow, and then I'll get a free vineyard. So he goes from being a total non-alcohol dude to banging his best friend's wife and taking over the vineyard. Now he's producing this award-winning wine. And everything's good. Everything's happy. Until he starts going crazy. So Robert, the idea is people think that he got syphilis at some point. But whatever the cause of it, he was going totally bonkers. He would start just forgetting stuff in the middle of the day, which is normal, which can happen. But what's not normal is across from the house, I guess there was a graveyard. Across from the vineyard, there was a graveyard where their house was. Not in the graveyard, but the house. Okay, there was a house and a vineyard attached to it. And then across the way, there was a graveyard. And one day he saw them digging a grave, and he's just looking out the window, looking at the grave. And the people in the house, they were already a little suspicious because he was acting weird. He just walks out of the house, crawls into the grave, and just lays down, puts his hands over his chest, and they had to force him to get out of the grave. And at this point, they're like, okay, this guy's having some real problems. He starts getting really angry. He starts lashing out at people. So this could be ghost cause number 2, because there's just all this emotional energy. So his wife, Martin's widow, and now Robert's wife, secretly has a jail cell built in the basement. So when he's just up there kind of dawdling around doing crazy people stuff, she's like having contractors come in, like bring in metal bars, giant gates, huge thing of keys, and Robert's like too out of it to realize what's going on. And then the wife is like, hey, Robert, why don't you come downstairs into the wine room and show me what wine is made out of again? And Robert's like, okay, are there any graves down there I can crawl into? And she's like, maybe. So he's like, puts on his pajamas, he's like, yes, a grave. They go downstairs, there's an open jail cell there, and she's like, why don't you step inside the jail cell real quick? And he does. I mean, that's I'm learning that the world is basically one giant Looney Tune cartoon. So he walks into the jail cell, they lock him in, and he's in there until he dies. They want to try to rehabilitate him, but at this point, he's trapped in the jail cell, he's banging his head against the bars. He starts to go blind, and that's why they think that it was syphilis, although it could be from the repeated headbanging on metal bars. That's also another theory. And eventually, he came to the delusion that his wife is trying to poison him, and he stopped eating, and he died. Now you have this widow in charge of this huge vineyard. She doesn't know anything about wine. She's like, I should have had him show me what wine was made out of before I locked him in that cell. He's trapped. He's dead. She is completely, she's starting to lose money. So, first off, she rents out the house to some boarders. So, she rents out a couple rooms That's not making enough money. The local town goes, hey, we heard you have a jail cell in your basement, in your wine cellar. And she's like, yeah, I kind of built it. It was a one-time thing. I thought it would be a better investment. Town goes, tell you what, we will rent it from you to house criminals in your house in this jail cell. So now she's renting out rooms in the house, and she has a jail in her basement. And then the town's like, you know what? We really like your jail cell. We really do. It's going really good. But we're having a bit of a problem because we put people in the jail and then we got to bring them all the way back to town to hang them. But you have just this amazing tree in your front yard. I mean, we've had people come out. It is the perfect hanging tree. It was actually in Hanging Tree Monthly. She's like, oh, I was wondering what that photographer was doing there. So then she leases out her tree to the city to hang people. There's just hanging dudes in her front yard. Now, at that point, she's not like Bill Gates rich, but she's no longer worried about, being homeless. Nowadays, the place is a hotel. It's called the Vineyard House. It's still around. You can rent a room. You can check it out. Tons of ghost sightings. Obviously, a ton of ghost sightings. Ghosts walking down the hallway, ghosts standing, in your bedroom, stuff like that. One of the most terrifying ones, though, are actually related. When I read up on this, I'll read about, it'll say, a Sacramento couple stayed in this hotel and experienced this haunting I'm about to talk about. I'm pretty sure I know who this couple is. I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100%, but just from connections that I have, because I'm from Sacramento, I'm pretty sure I know who this couple is. But and I haven't talked to them directly about this, but their story is this. They're staying the night at this hotel that they knew was going to be haunted, and after a couple hours, they just check out. They go downstairs and they're like, keep our money, we're leaving. And when the bellboy or the concierge, whatever the dude is behind the counter in all those movies, when he goes, well, why? And they go, I think someone's being murdered in the next room. I'm pretty sure someone's getting murdered over there. So at that point, they call the police. They're like, whoa, before you check out, maybe if you think someone's getting murdered there, maybe you should call the police. Okay, we'll call the police. Police show up, they go in the room, there's nothing. Which is kind of what everyone suspected. They figured they knew they were in a haunted hotel. You hear the sound of someone being murdered. It means one of two things. Someone is actually being murdered, or it's a ghost. Cops come, they check it out, there's nothing in there. But the Sacramento couple's like, that's what we figured. That's why we didn't call the cops at first. But we're still not staying here, because that was terrifying. The sound of someone being murdered would be quite scary. I mean, it's more than just like a tussle, like, fight, come on, punch me, give me back my money. It's straight up like begging and sobbing and like wet thwacking noises as whatever you're hitting with them penetrates flesh. Quite gruesome. And another version of that story, a separate version, later on, another couple was staying in the room one couple was in a room, let's call it room 1, and they heard a murder occurring in room 2. A time later, a couple was in room 2. And when they woke up in the middle of the night, they saw the phantom of a man just beating the tar out of a little boy. I mean, just straight up going at him. Just, again, super brutal. Like, we're used to hearing stories about ghosts kind of walking around or turning lights off and stuff like that. But to actually see two ghosts fight is super, super rare. I mean, outside of like a Civil War battlefield. But then to just see one ghost be like, no, I don't want to fight, and just getting pummeled for the implication, eternity. This little boy is getting just beat up for the rest of eternity by this old man ghost. Give me your lunch money. I don't eat lunch. Slimer already took it. Grr. Punching him. Punching out ectoplasm. Slimer's eating his guts. Eating little kids' guts that come out. So yeah. Oh, dude. Actually, did you hear they're making Ghostbusters 3? They just dropped a teaser trailer for it. It's by Ivan Reitman's son, and they're forgetting the stupid Ghostbusters remake. It's a brand new Ghostbusters 3. So my Slimer jokes are going to be more apt pretty soon. Summer 2020. Hopefully it's good. But anyway, so old man beating up a kid for eternity. Terrifying stuff. Creepy stuff. I would probably stay in that hotel, though. Just because I think if I stayed out of one of those two rooms, I would just see like a ghost walking around. I'd see a little boy like all laughing, running down the hallway, and I see him go in room 2. I'm like, no, dude, don't. He's like, I'm destined to. He walks through the door. Terrifying. Yeah. That was a clip from our daily podcast, Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime news. If you want to hear the full episode that this clip came from, check the link below. Please like and subscribe. And hit that little bell, too. That does some magical stuff. Thanks, guys.